Hello, welcome back to a new old book. This is book 2 of Smart Money Woman, but this one is called The Smart Money Tribe, an African Woman's Guide to Making Banks by Arese Ugwu. We'll go straight to chapter 1. Prologue. Zuri. The award for the most commercially successful private equity deal of the year goes to Mr. Tishola, CEO of Zuma Capital. The audience bursted into applause. Zuri couldn't stop smiling as Tishola kissed her on her cheeks and strode on stage with his signature confident swagger to receive his award from the publishers of Business Day newspaper, Frank Aigbogu. They were at the paper's annual CEO Forum Gala, the most prestigious business event of the year. Every professional in town wanted to snag an invitation. Every CEO wanted a table. And better still, everyone who was anyone wanted to bag an award. Just being one of the nominees alone gave them bragging rights for years to come. Tishola being nominated was no surprise. He was Nigeria's private equity golden boy and the youngest nominee on the list. He had had some of the most lucrative deals under his belt, all before he turned 40. And this year, he had worked on a highly published telecom deals that had broken record in terms of its size and its impact on business environment for SMEs. Thank you for this prestigious award. It was an honor to be nominated alongside some of many great CEOs. Doing business in Nigeria is certainly difficult. It's certainly different from what we learned in business school, Tishola joked. The crowd laughed in agreement. His voice took on a more serious tone. However, it's a privilege to be able to identify the problems of the country and work to solve them. It has been quite a journey to overcome the many obstacles that are inherent to doing business in Nigeria, and it would have been impossible to do this without my team at Zuma Capital, who worked tirelessly to get us all to this point. The Zuma team applauded loudly from their table, standing up to cheer. He held out the award and looked directly at where Zuri sat along with her besties, Tammy, Ladum, Lara, and Adesua, and continued. I could also never have accomplished this in peace. He paused and grinned. Without the support of my beautiful girlfriend Zuri. We did this, baby. All the late nights and early morning paid off. Thank you for understanding. He lifted his award triumphantly as he left the stage to another round of applause. Zuri couldn't help feel shy. Only he would have the nerves to acknowledge his girlfriend so publicly in such a formal setting. Most Nigerian men would have reserved such public declaration for their wives. She tried to avoid the teasing stares of her friends, who were all there to support Tishola, because she knew she would burst into laughter, and she was trying to keep calm as Tishola walked up to the table. She stood up, smoothing her red, fabbling by daring dress, hugging Tishola before he sat down. Her phone beeped. It was a text from Olumide Sani, an ex-boyfriend who had popped up recently and wouldn't stop sending unwelcome, overly familiar messages, asking her to dinner. You always looked so sexy in a backless dress. Can't stop thinking about you. The text read. He's clearly in the room, she thought, slightly panicked as she glanced around the banquet hall. She knew his father company was being honored tonight as well. As she reread the text, her heart jumped, just a tiny bit, and she couldn't help a small smile. She was flattered, but it was inappropriate. Zuri put her phone away. The last thing she needed was for Tishola to see her smiling over a cheeky text. He was frank. He would freak out because they had just gotten back on an even keel after the deal closed. She wasn't sure their relationship could survive another fight. She couldn't help it, but it upset her that he was so extreme when it came to his work schedule. When he was in work mode, she hardly saw him. No call, no text, no visits to see how she was doing. When she complained about wanting to spend more time together, his response would always be a faint accompli. You can either deal with a broke man or a busy man. Your pick. So that's all for prologue. Next is Tishola, but I read it in the next chapter. Bye. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. Bless you, Mama. So welcome back to the Smart Money Tribe, book 2 of The Smart Money Woman by Arese. So this is still under prologue, but they're just trying to do a brief reintroduction to the characters, telling us at what point they are now in their lives. So first, Tishola. Tishola walked through the tables trying to get back to his seat, stopping to greet several businessmen who stood up to congratulate him, but his eyes remained glued to Zuri the entire time. She looked magnificent in that red dress. The backless dress hugged every curve on her body, ending just above the curve of her bum. He felt that the dress was a touch too sexy for this event. But he had learnt in the almost 2 years of dating Zuri, he should keep those thoughts to himself. If he was honest, there was nothing wrong with the dress, but he always had mixed feelings when they went anywhere together. He loved that when he walked into a room with her on his arms, men couldn't keep their eyes off her. But at the same time, he hated it because she was his, and he disliked the idea of any other man coveting her. Is that red flag or no red flag? Is that red flag or no red flag? Okay, let's say no red flag. Zuri was the only woman in his entire dating history that made him feel this way. She drove him absolutely crazy. And it wasn't even about how she looked. She was brilliant, stubborn and strong-willed. Listened to him, but still insisted on doing things her way. Okay, queen. He loved that she was such a go-getter with work, and had been a fast rising star at the real estate development company where she worked. There was a fire about her that was contagious, and he had known for a while that he wanted to marry her. He couldn't explain it, but Zuri was his ideal partner. She just made his life better. She made him want to be better, to do more, to want more. You're a joker, you know that, right? Zuri whispered in his ear as she hugged him. Only you would accept an award and mention your girlfriend. Baby, we did it, Abby. She laughed. You know you are in Nigeria, right? This is not the Oscars, babe. I'm sure a lot of those old 40 daddies balked when you said girlfriend instead of wife. But you're going to be my wife, he smirked. Talk true, Zuri said sarcastically, in pidgin English, sounding like a real Benin girl. It made her smile every time he made these declarations. However, as much as she loved Tishola, their recent spat of argument made her question if they were compatible for marriage. She wanted to say time will tell, but instead she said softly, I'm so proud of you, babe. Next, this is Tammy. As the waiter came to top up their drinks, Tammy couldn't help smiling as she observed Zuri and Tishola, simply because she loved the way they were together. They were definitely couple goals tonight. Tishola was looking good and giving her African James Bond vibes in his Maatafo tuxedos. At his age, he had accomplished more than half the men in this room, and that was saying a lot. These were men responsible for at least half of Nigeria's GDP. More than anything else, though, she appreciated the way he was with Zuri. Having watched her friend blossom while the two dated, she could tell he wanted to see her win. But the cynic in Tammy was waiting for the other shoes to drop. Because some guys end up being Yoruba demons. But God forbid, Tammy thought. She had to admit that even though Zuri was not wearing the Irawo by Tammy outfit, she looked gorgeous in a dress whose cut and style did many flattering things to her figure. She had planned to dress all the girls for the event tonight, but her staff were overwhelmed, so she had to focus on Lara, Ladum, and Adesua. They were each going through difficult strains of drama at the moment and had little time to think about what to wear. She had put Lara in cobalt blue floor-length dress with sheer sleeves and a diamante neckline. She looked stunning. Adesua was conservative but chic in a pink double-breasted suit, and Ladum was wearing a black two-piece that accentuated all her curves. Her girls looked good and represented Iravu brilliantly. She couldn't help the tingle of pride she felt about the stride her fashion brand had made in the last year. It hadn't quite become a household name, but it was semi-popular on Instagram. The fly in the ointment was that even with the increased recognition for Irawo, she often had to admit to herself that she still struggled with this entrepreneurship thing. It felt like no matter how much effort she put in, she was fighting weekly fires to stay in business. The work she put in never seemed to match the money in her account. Next, Ladum. Okay. Ladum toyed with the braised chicken on her plate as she observed Tishola accepting his award. She was so proud of him and all his hard work. Out of the corner of her eyes, she observed the exchange between Bode and Chief Coker, chairman of Carbon Industries, and her stomach churned in anger and disgust. She couldn't stand the short, pot-bellied man, and more importantly, she couldn't believe Bode was being so nice to the old snake who was supposed to have been one of her father-in-law's closest friends. He had been at every Ashoni family function at home and abroad, and the two had made many money-spinning deals together over the last 30 years. He had been chiefs, as Baba, her father-in-law, was fondly called, inner circle. When Chief passed away, the financial scandal broke. Chief Coker had been nowhere to be found. He had come to the house once to commiserate with Bode's mom, attended the funeral, but that had been it. He didn't offer any financial assistance or ask how they were faring. Instead, they had heard recently that he was in bed with one of the bank to cherry-pick some of the assets the family were planning to sell to cover the debt Baba had left behind. Sneak. The public display of bonhomie with Bode was playing to an audience, and she didn't even bother to get up when he came to their table. She had mumbled her hello and faced her front. It was all she could do to stop herself from eyeing him and hurling insults at the old goat. She had been reluctant to come to this event because she knew that this was a playground for all of Baba Shoni's so-called friends and business associates. There would be fake smiles and pleasantries, followed by whispers, pointing and staring. She just wasn't in the mood, but she had to be there because of Zuri and Tishola. Swallow your food well, or swallow your food well before you choke. Bode looked amused at her almost hostile expression as he sat down. I don't know how you do it, Sha. After everything we heard last week about the old fool's plan, you are still smiling with him and being polite. He must think you are stupid, and you don't even know what he's up to, Ladum fumed. Bode shrugged. I'm not one's fool, babe. There's no point confronting him or being rude. The lawyers are working to block him, so I'm certain he won't succeed. Men like Chief Coker want you to come and grovel before them to beg for favors. I wasn't raised like that. My father left us with a touch in a tough situation, but we as Shonis are fighters. We'll get out of this no matter how long it takes. Besides, you know what I learned from my father's mistakes? What? Ladum asked. When it comes to friendships, business or personal, take quality over quantity, Bode declared with a smile. That's deep. That's me though. You see, my father did business and served on executive councils with many of these men in the room. But in times of trouble, they were nowhere to be found. He donated to their charities, funded their children's weddings, gave many of them opportunities. But what did they do to give back? I don't want to invest in one-sided relationship and wake up 70 years to learn I have no real friends. This experience has taught me to be circumspect about the people in my inner circle. He took a sip of his drink. Ladum smiled as she held his hands. You're right. Though through all the chaos, he had been a warrior for her, their children, for his mother. Their financial situation had changed drastically in the last year and a half, but instead of sinking in rough, musky water, Bode was doing his best to keep them all afloat. She was proud of him, but admitted to herself that in her quiet moments, she was scared. She had feared about their financial situation that she couldn't voice to Bode or even her girls, and to be honest, she wasn't sure how much longer she could manage. They were still a long way from where they had once been. It was a bitter pill to swallow. Her life had gone from fabulous housewife to struggling employee in less time than it took a push to get from 0 to 60. She has taken an advertising job she hated, so their combined incomes could make ends meet. But the reality was that they were barely keeping their heads above water, and she wasn't sure how much more she could take. She took a gulp of wine from her glass. Next, Adesua. Frank Aigbogun reached forward and shook Adesua's hand. We loved your last article about entertainment law and the Nigerian music industry, he told her. It was very insightful. Well done. Thank you, sir. Adesua tried not to look too pleased with herself, but gave herself a mental high five. She has spent the better part of a week working on it, researching and fact-checking. Despite her heavy workload, she had really enjoyed partnering with them in the last few months to create content that appealed to their growing millennial audience. The partnership was great for her personal brand and had attracted some very lucrative opportunities. Adesua wrapped up her conversation and walked to the back of the room to wait for the last award recipient to finish delivering her acceptance speech. Finding her way back to her table now, would be distracting as the room had quieted down. She was scrolling mindlessly through her Instagram feed when her eyes caught a post by Benga, one of Soji's friends. Shock poured through her, followed by an overwhelming wave of sadness. It was a shot of a group of guys over drinks, and she spotted Soji's profile next to a light-skinned girl in a midriff-bearing skimpy outfit, standing on the edge of the table. There was nothing to suggest that the girl was with Soji, or that they were doing anything inappropriate, but Adesua knew better. As she walked through the room, she wiped the lone tears that found its way down her cheeks. She knew she had to get it together before she got to her seat, because it would be difficult to explain to her friend why she was crying. She had been separated from her husband for over a year and had even started divorce proceedings. But a few months ago, Soji came back, hats in hand, to beg her to work things out, especially for their son, Soji Jr. or SG's sake. At first, she was reluctant to even listen, because she didn't know how she could ever trust him again. But 2 months ago, she let him back into the house on a trial basis, something she hadn't found the courage to tell her friends yet. She knew they would be furious about the whole debacle with Soji running off with that Chinasa girl, along with all the money in their joint accounts. They would never understand her even considering taking Soji back, and they were probably right. Adesua suspected that he had only come back when the money had run out and his business endeavors weren't generating enough income to sustain his lifestyle. She didn't trust him. How could she? This was the man that had thrown away the life they had built together over the last 15 years for a piece of ass. They had started dating when she was 19, but had not exchanged vows until she was 30. If she was honest with herself, throughout their relationship, she had always cheated. It was his... Oh, my bad, I was shocked for a minute. If she was honest with herself, throughout their relationship, he had always cheated. It was his failing, although she had her fair share of confrontations with other women. She had always convinced herself that she was his number one, his rock, and that he would never leave her. When he had left her for Chinasa, she had been blindsided and left feeling unproductive for months as she fought to get over the humiliation. Then out of the blues, he had shown up with his family in tow, begging Adesua had felt a strong urge to forgive him, because after a year separated, she still couldn't stand the thought of being labeled a divorcee. Oh, Adesua. It made her feel like she had failed, and it gave her so much anxiety around being a single mother. During their separation, there were many nights when the fear of raising SJ on her own kept her up. In reality, even when Soji was there, she was still the primary parent, but it was easier to have a father figure in the household than none at all. Her parents had also put her under severe pressure. They had been insistent phone calls from her mother daily, saying, "Don't throw away your marriage because of a small girl. At least he's begging. He has seen the errors of his way. Adesua, you're a strong woman. You have to persevere. And worst of all, think of your son. Abi, you want your son SJ to grow up without a father because you're being stubborn." Her mother often said the mark of a strong wife was their ability to endure. But Adesua wondered why the strength of an African woman was measured by the amount of pain and struggle they could tolerate. Was it really wisdom to suffer constant humiliation, or was it actually a weakness? Was it the fear of letting go because of the many years she had invested in the relationship, or the fear of being ostracized by society for failing at marriage? Was marriage supposed to be endurance or enjoyed? Anyway, she couldn't allow herself to be paranoid right now over a picture she had given him a chance, decided to make her marriage work. She had to stick to it. I'm happy with my decision. My family is intact. I'm happy. I am happy. Adesua repeated it like a mantra under her breath, trying to make herself believe. Next, Lara. They had reached the networking portion of the event. Award had been collected. Guests had eaten, but the champagne was still flowing. It was time to mingle and connect with the creme de la creme of Nigerian business community. Zuri and Lara were deep in conversations with a real estate mogul, a woman who was, to put it simply, incredible. She was beautiful and accomplished, but most importantly, she brought such positive energy to every room she walked into. It wasn't because her life was perfect. She had overcome a lot of obstacles and was a breast cancer survivor. Zuri and Lara were in awe of her. I hope my mom has this attitude to life when she beats this thing, Lara thought. It had been a tough couple of months, with her mom being diagnosed with breast cancer, and things were not looking good. The last month of her life had been consumed with hospital visits, doctor's appointments, and second opinions on treatment plan. It was all very exhausting. At first, she had felt guilty about taking the night off to celebrate with Tishola and Zuri. She had gone back and forth, but in the end, she had decided to come because she knew it was important to Zuri. More than the thought, she needed a bit of a break. She felt guilty just thinking about it. Her phone rang, making her heart skip a bit. It was Auntie Ifoma, her mother's younger sister, who had taken night shift to watch her mom at the hospital. She glanced at her watch. It was almost 1 in the morning. Her aunt wouldn't call usually call at this hour. Lara's heart dropped to her stomach. This couldn't be good. Something was terribly wrong. So that brings us to the end of the introductory chapter. We're heading to chapter 1. Yeah. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. See you in the next video.